Morning punters, happy Monday. Hope the week goes well. There's a crime wave happening in sport in Australia at the moment. There's probably no real victims, but it's worth reporting anyway. That is the crime against mathematics. The use of statistics is just insane when it comes to being a guide for the future. Now, it could be in sport, you know, Brisbane Lions record at the Adelaide Oval, blah, blah, blah. Are they the best team? Are they not the best team? And I thought about this with racing on Saturday at Flemington. Pretty basic sort of card. That's what you get at this time of year as horses go round and round and round. 12th man, Murray Walker style, if you're old enough to remember the 80s. Ciaron Maher trains a winner called Midnight Storm. An import having its first Australian run, first start in 528 days. And it wins. Now, fortunately I included it in my top 4, and which I like to use as a benchmark for the information I give out to my customers. And it was one of those swingers, because, not that type of swinger, because you think, well, it's having a kick-off. Its trial leading in was good. Is it switched on? It was a pretty basic race, as I wrote. It's hardly the Cox Plate at benchmark 70 over a mile. And Ciaron's foreman, or assistant trainer, Jack Turnbull, gets on RSN on Saturday morning. They ask him about it. And he basically said it was there to run very well. They expect it to be very competitive. Very happy with it. Hadn't had a run for 528 days, but they were pretty confident it was going to run a good race. Now, when a horse has got that type of profile, that is a very bullish signal, because conversely you could hear, oh, it's had all types of issues behind the scenes. We think we've finally got it right. We'll be delighted if it gets around in one piece, and it's hopefully its goal is in about 3 months' time. There's the Andrew Ramsden, blah blah blah. So I thought, well, that's enough, because my goodness, it's a weak race, so I'm including it. Anyway, it wins. It was $10, which also says something about how much the big punters take into account what trainers tell the media. Sometimes there's opportunities just listening to the information. Personally, I put myself into a little bubble. Don't want to hear a racing interview, don't want to read one, anything until I've done my own work, form my own opinion, and then you put the layer of information across or on top of it, or blend it in once you've done your own work. And that was a real situation where you wanted that extra information from the stable. Anyway, it wins. I put out something on Twitter saying what a great training performance it was. And it is, like, regardless of how weak the Flemington race was, it's still a Flemington City race on a Saturday, and the horse is having its first run in 528 days. Someone replies to me, oh, what about its... It was, I haven't got the specifics, but it was basically how poor Ciaron Maher's strike rate was recently. Now, he did have correct information, which I'll get to. Never in a month of Sundays would it have occurred to me to look at the recent stats of Ciaron Maher when assessing the chances of Midnight Storm. 1, how strong was the race, or in this case, how weak was the race? 2, did it have any ability? Clearly it did. 3, been trialling well. And then the extra bit of information was the tick from the stable. Beautiful. So, my question is, if you didn't back Midnight Storm because of Ciaron Maher's recent stats, you missed out on a $10 winner. And what that's saying by extension, because of his recent stats, you're saying that Ciaron Maher, the leading trainer in Victoria, nearly doubled his opposition in the previous racing season. Suddenly lost the ability to train horses in a 10-day period. I would think that is a criminal way to look at statistics. Now the actual numbers are, because I looked them up after the race, were he had 44 runners from the 1st to the 10th, to the 9th rather, day before the 10th. Numbers work that way. For 2 winners, 2 from 44. If you include New Year's Eve where they had 20 runners, they'd won 4 from 64. So that's a low strike rate. It's also a very low sample size because you're saying it's a 10 or 11 day period. Now, how many of those horses were in the market? How many of those horses that were in the market were false favourites? How many of those horses that were favourites were unlucky? Pulled up sore. I'm going to look at all this. So if you want the actual information, I'm looking at this today and I'm going to put it out as a free newsletter. You just have to be registered to my website, racetrackralphie.com.au. Free registration, no one else sees anything, no corporate bookmaker affiliations. But why in the hell would you worry about what Ciaron Maher's strike rate was in the previous 10 or 11 days in assessing whether a horse could win a race? Each their own. And if it works for you, good luck. Now, I'm not saying don't use statistics in racing, and I like using them with jockeys because it comes down to confidence. I mean, these are blokes who literally put, non-gender specific blokes, people who put their lives on the line, lead a Spartan lifestyle. If they're riding lots and not riding winners, confidence is going to get to them. But again, take into account the time of year. Mark Zahra comes back from holidays, he's stripping weight. Do you want to assess him at his Group 1 best? Wouldn't think that's a good idea. And similarly with stables, there are stables that have very good runs and swim with the tide, stables that have bad runs. It may be taken into account over a 6-week period, 3-month period when it comes to big stables, but at this time of year, big stables are also going through a ship up or ship out phase. You've got the Magic Millions around the corner and other yearling sales. They're running several horses, or multiple horses, that they think probably aren't good enough. Put it in a week race in the summer. If it doesn't measure up, the email goes to the owners. Look, thanks, it's been fun, but I think you need to go to a smaller stable or a weaker jurisdiction. That's the reality. So a lot of those runners that are going to give big stables so-called poor strike rate, it's going to be based on that, or those factors. So I think that's just a little bit silly. Anyway, my 2 bobs. Have a great week.